Tonight's episode of People I Want to Talk to is sponsored by Dissolve. Dissolve is a new fragrance for bikers who are tired of smelling like an armpit and riding up and down the same old roads. Not only will it leave you smelling like $1,000,000, but it will also absorb into your bloodstream like a shot of whiskey and transport you and your chopper to new dimensions. Just spray this magic potion on your chest, beard, or gut and breathe in the sweet aroma as your pupils dilate and you ride into a surreal landscape to nowhere. Cruise up and down roads you've never been while riding alongside the ghosts of the past and staring out at distorted skylines full of vivid colors that would leave the squares pissing in their boots. This isn't some mainstream 9-to-5 die when I'm old and gray cologne. This, my man, is freedom. Visit dissolve.com to pick up a bottle today. As always, enter code PEOPLE at checkout for 10% off. All right. Thank you very much to our sponsor, and let's start the show. Thank you for tuning into People I Want to Talk to. I'm your host, Jason Sarna. Tonight, my guest is Mondo Porras from Denver Choppers. Mondo, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you for taking the time to come interview me.
Yeah, for sure. So I met Mondo a few weeks ago. I have a 2004 Harley-Davidson Sportster that I've had for about 3 years now. Last year, I picked up some passenger foot pegs so my girlfriend could ride on the back. However, I couldn't install the right peg due to the exhaust being in the way. I brought the bike over to Denver Choppers, and Mondo went to work on disassembling the peg from its frame and fabricating a reinforced sleeve that allowed the peg to screw directly into the bike above the exhaust. Observing Mondo in action was like watching a master at work. He knew exactly what to do, picking out the necessary parts, skillfully operating a variety of tools and machines, and using his imagination to create something unique. The entire fabrication took less than an hour, and after he was done and I asked what I owed him, he told me to take my girlfriend out to dinner, which I did. On my ride home, I thought about the experience and was struck by Mondo's level of professionalism, skill, and overall generosity. Sometimes you go to bike shops and you're a bit intimidated by the employees, but Mondo was very welcoming and kind, as you can all probably tell for the fact that he agreed to do this interview. So to kick off the conversation, I just want to say thanks again for helping me out with that foot peg.
My pleasure. Whenever I see young guys come by and they need help, I was a young guy, believe it or not, once myself.
Yeah.
So I was helped by a lot of people, and it's given back.
Cool. Yeah, for sure. And so continuing on that, as far as being a young guy, so how did you first get into bikes?
Well, this story is a well documented story. Denver Choppers was started in San Bernardino, California, in 1967, and it used to be a custom auto shop where we did custom painting on cars and roof cutting, chopping, and so on and so forth. And Denver Mullins was a guy about 4 or 5 years older than me. I was in high school, and he ended up being my mentor. And he was a terrific painter and custom car builder, but he bought a Harley-Davidson and wanted to fix it up. And back then, there was no catalogs, no place you could turn to buy parts. So if you wanted to build something custom, you had to make your own parts. So he got his and extended the front end and painted it, and it looked beautiful, beautiful bike. And a couple of the other guys got bikes, and I ended up getting a bike, and we all started fixing the bikes and making custom parts just for ourselves, just to ride around on weekends and Thursday night out bar hopping and stuff. So it was just kind of our deal, our group from Denver Choppers. And then people started noticing our custom bikes, and they said, "Hey, man, can you build me a front end, or how about a paint job, or can you build me a set of pipes?" And before you know it, we got so busy at the shop that we closed the automotive portion of the shop down and started Denver Choppers, hung a shingle and named after Denver, and away we went and never looked back. And we actually started the aftermarket industry. We're the first ones to offer aftermarket frames and front ends and wheels and handlebars and custom-made stuff. So There you go. That's how the aftermarket industry started. And we're the guys that invented the long bikes. You see these choppers with long front ends and stretch frames. That's all out of Denver Choppers, out of like I say, out of our shop in San Bernardino, California, in the late '60s. So,
And that's a specific name you call those front ends, right?
well, the stretch frames and the long front ends, and most people refer to them. Hey, there goes a Denver.
Okay.
You know, just like, hey, there goes a Chevy, or hey, there goes a Ford. Hey, there goes a Denver. They had that unique look. And here we are 53 years later, and still building bikes, and the old tradition of the choppers. Denver has since passed on. Denver and I got into racing drag boats, and we really got into professional racing of the drag boats. I drove one, he drove one, and we started. I'm sorry there, and we started racing these drag boats, and so we took that hobby and made it into a business. We started building our own hulls and started building our own capsules for the drag boats, and we had a 3-boat race team, so we got real serious about racing. And Denver and I had a deal, because the sport was so dangerous, that if either one of us got killed drag boat racing, we would keep the shop going, Denver Choppers going, and keep the drag boat shop going. So lo and behold, October 4th, 1992, Denver was killed in our top fuel boat. And a tragic day. And you know, I honored my agreement to go ahead and buy the shop and keep it going and keep the drag boats going. And so I did. I bought Denver Choppers and go, okay, let's keep this thing going. A lot of the guys didn't want to do it with me, but I said, okay, I can do this on my own. I got a lot of learning to do.
They didn't want to continue with.
Well, they wanted to go their own way.
Okay.
They all felt that they could go their own way, the ones that were there. So, and I let them. They did. And so I picked up and moved out of Southern California and moved to Lake Havasu. And I was in Lake Havasu for 3 years. I opened up a drag boat shop, building the drag boats, keeping my word, and building the bikes at the same time. I met a beautiful young lady in Lake Havasu, and we decided to move to Las Vegas and take this thing to the next level. And it was right during the prime when TV was starting to do put the motorcycles on TV, like Motorcycle Mania and Biker Build Off, and I happened to be on both those. I was on Motorcycle Mania with Jesse James, and then I did the Biker Build Off against Indian Larry when he got killed. But anyway, this thing took off during the heyday in 03, 04, 05, 06 was just, everybody wanted a custom motorcycle. So my shop in Vegas just grew and grew. I had a bunch of employees and secretaries, and so we ran with it, and doing a lot of TV, a lot of traveling, making these beautiful custom motorcycles, a lot of magazines. And my name got out there, and they even called me the Godfather of Choppers. Because I had been doing it for so long, and here we are today. And I'm up here in Reno, Nevada, and my daughter wanted me up here to be around the grandkids, so I closed my shop in Vegas, moved up here about 6 years ago, and I'm still building the custom bikes and loving it more and more every day. And I'm building some cars, some hot rods, and so it's been an exciting life. I'm not a kid anymore. I'm 71 years old, and the shop is 53 years old, and I'm one of the original guys. I was in my first magazine in 1970 when they were black and white magazines. So I've got a lot of history in this thing we call Custom Choppers, and I know everybody in the business, and it's been quite a ride, a little roller coaster ride in life, but I love it. I don't think I'd do anything else, and I'm here 7 days a week at the shop because I want to be, because I love it. It's not a job. It's a passion. It's something that very near and dear to my heart, and I take a lot of pride into the quality of these motorcycles. People come from all over the world to have me build bikes, and to see these bikes in magazines and see the looks on people's faces when they get their bikes. I build them for TV. I built for Sons of Anarchy. I built for movies. So I've been blessed to do a lot of custom motorcycles, and I'm having fun.
Nice. Well, that's
the bottom line. I'm having a great time.
Yeah, that's awesome. How many bikes or choppers would you say you've actually made? If you just
over the years, over 50 years, I can't even begin to count. When I was in Vegas, I was really knocking them out because I had a crew of 10 guys, and as fast as the orders were coming in, we're building bikes. I was doing all the fabrication on them because I wanted to make sure they were done properly. So I did all the welding, cutting, building the front ends, the pipes, everything, and then I'd turn it over to the assembly department and paint and let them do their thing and do the final assembly. But I was always on top of everything that was going on. Every bike that went out that door, I worked on. And today, you come see me to want a bike build, I take it from concept to turnkey. You know, I'm the only one that has my hands on it.
And how was that process as far as, was that the biggest shop you've ever worked in, the one with the 10 people in Vegas?
No, because when we had our shop in San Bernardino, the shop, we probably had about 30 guys there because at one time we had our own chrome shop.
Okay.
That's a whole staff. Own upholstery shop, own paint shop, assembly, fabrication, and front office and parts and mail orders. So that, you know, it takes a lot of people to run a business that size. And so there were a lot of people working there when Denver was around. And
how was that process as far as like business wise, like getting into that for a second, as far as running a shop that's big compared to right now in Reno, you have nobody. It's just you.
Yeah. Well, I've had other experiences in life. I was a building contractor at one time, so I've had as many as 100 people working for me. So,
all right.
You know, I've never really had a job per se where anybody tells me what to do. I've always been my own guy and done my own thing. So and had people working for me. So that part was never intimidating. You know, hiring people, firing people, teaching people, and coordinating people and sweating payroll and everything. That's pretty much something that I've done all my life. But now that I'm older and I'm doing this by myself, I'm not sweating payroll anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not having to go over people's work and say, hey, that's not quite up to par or anything like that. So actually, this is the happiest time of my life because I'm free to go back there and create and do my own thing and look at it when it's done and see the smile on people's faces when they get their product and the pride that they have and the pride that I have in that. And I have a saying that every bike I build it like I'm building it for myself. Nice. That means every part on it has just got to be perfect. So that is kind of what I do. That's kind of about a nutshell. Denver Choppers is custom bikes the way you want them. You know, you come in and tell me what you want, and I'll build it for you. If it's not too off the wall, you know. Sometimes I draw the line and rein people in a little bit because it's not our style. Our style is more simplistic. It's not. I don't want the thing to look like a billet Easter egg or a Christmas tree ornaments hanging off it. They put so much stuff on it. I have a saying here that we always had the saying, less is more. Yeah. And then from mild to wild was one of our mottos too. So that's you get mild to wild, and I want the bike to look like when it's done that it shouldn't even run because all the wiring's hidden, everything is hidden on the bike, and
nice.
And nothing on there that you don't need. I mean, you're not gonna find stereos on my choppers or any of that stuff, you know. So,
how do you feel about? Do you have people contacting you a lot? I mean, just because you've been in the industry for so long, and it's almost like I was saying in the beginning, kind of just watching you work and operate like throughout the shop, like just knowing where everything is, knowing how to create something pretty much at the snap of your fingers. I mean, don't you have people wanting to learn from you, or like?
Well, I've had people that here's the story when you have people, young guys that want to work for you and stuff. You know, I'll take them on and start teaching them and spending the time with them, and it takes away from what I'm doing, to be honest with you. And then when they get where they know a little bit, they get a little cocky, and then they run off. I can go do my own shop. Yeah. So you wasted all your time and energy working with that guy or girl, you know, and you just say, well, no, thanks, but no thanks, I'll do it by myself. Yeah. I've had guys fly out from Japan and say, here, I came out here to apprentice for you for free. Yeah. And I said, well, I really don't want to take an apprentice on. They go, no, for free. I want to be a disciplined student. And I said, no, I can't do it. And I'll send them to some other shop. And I have done that before. I'll send them to L.A. to Chica, or he's Japanese, or some other where they'll take them on and where they speak the language, you know. But because
I could see.
I think if I was a younger guy and where I was more their age and you know, work with them that way, that'd be fine. But now that I'm older, I'm so fixed in my way of doing everything every day. And you noticed the other day when I was making those parts, that part for you is all my tools are, I can reach out. I can do it blindfolded. I put every tool away. It's like a surgeon's desk.
Yeah.
You know, everything is there in its order, and I keep the shop very clean. I put everything away at night. I sweep the floors. So when I come in and I start a project, I know exactly where every part is. I know what pieces are. I know the steps that I'm going to take, the machines that I'm going to use, and that cuts your time in half.
Yeah, definitely.
And one other thing about that is, if say you were to come in and see me for the first time, and you look around the shop, and I have the people do this all the time, comment about how clean the shop is, and to me that makes them want to spend money with you, because they know they're not paying you to look for your tools. You know, they're paying me $110 an hour, but I spend half an hour looking for a wrench.
Yeah.
You know, so that's not right. That's not good for the customer. And I've gone into shops where they're so dirty and so undisciplined that I just turn around and walk out. You know, they might do good work, but you know, I don't want my work done there.
Yeah.
You know, so I've always made that, even when I had all the employees, keep your work area clean. You know, keep everything picked up. Know where all your tools are. Put them away every night. I don't want to see a mess when I come in.
Yeah.
Floors are swept and clean, and people come in and they comment, "Wow, what a clean shop! I think I want to spend my money here.
Yeah, for
I'm
sure.
in the right place." So that's just something that I've learned throughout life. You know, in whatever I did, and my drag boat shop was always spotless. And you know, I used to build my own drag boats. I built all the capsules for the drag boats with the F-16 windshields and the roll cages, and my shop was spotless. And I built my own boat molds and stuff like that. And people had come to me from all over the country to have me build the parts for the race boats. But you got to be efficient if you want to make any money. You got to make every step count, and every move you make, and just be efficient, and have all your materials there. You know.
Yeah.
Oh man, I got to stop. I don't have any fiberglass.
And where'd you learn all that from? Was that something that Denver taught you, or
well, Denver was a lot like that, but it's pretty much something that I taught myself.
Okay.
And I just, you know, especially if you work by yourself, you got to work smarter, not harder. You know, you got to know, okay, it's when you do something like this, you're going from point A to point B, and you just got to know how you're going to get there. You know, okay, I'm going to build a gas tank today, but I got to make sure that I move it back on the frame far enough so that when I turn the handlebars don't hit the tank. So you're constantly thinking of all that stuff ahead of time. So when you position the tank on the motorcycle, you know, anything that you do, you're always thinking 2 steps ahead, 3 steps ahead. How is this going to affect the fender? How is this going to affect the seat? Or how about the pipes? Are they going to be in the way of the kicker?
Yeah.
So you're always thinking all those steps ahead. And at the end, well, okay, here's where I got to drill the holes in the frame to hide my wiring.
Yeah.
So it's a process, and once you've done it enough, it just like having dinner. You just do it. You know,
Yeah.
you just it's the process, the steps that you go through. So that
they didn't think
that
about
makes
that.
it easier. You know, you know, I have young guys come to me all the time. They go to MMA or MMI. That's the Motorcycle Technical Institute or something like that. And they get out and they graduate. I had one in here last week, a young kid that just graduated, and his dad bought him a motorcycle frame and a front end to do a project. So they came up from New Mexico to pick it up on Saturday. So then I started showing the kids some stuff. Okay, now you're going to build your fender next, and you got to put your back wheel on. Pull a string line down the backbone of your frame and line up the back tire, put spacers in it, then take a garden hose and tape it to the tire, because that's going to be the spacing between your fender, the perfect spacing between your fender and your tire. Tape a garden hose on there, fold it in half. And I started showing him all this different stuff, and this kid just lit up, and I liked it. He was taking notes and taking pictures and everything. So I took the time to show him all this. Now, this probably would have taken him years to try to figure out on his own.
Yeah, well, that's what I think.
But I gave him enough schooling in a couple hours, and he was taking notes and taking pictures, and I was actually demonstrating and showing him how to do some of this stuff. And so now this young guy with a sponge for a mind, he was all excited when he left here. He was jumping up and down. He just, man, I can't wait to get home and start on this project.
Well, that's what I think about when I think about the young guys wanting to learn from you. Like, it's like I have a background in writing, so it's like you want to learn from the best, so you research the best authors. So it's like you have all these tips and tricks, like even something like that, use a garden hose. It's something that people don't typically think of. So it's like passing down. Like, do you feel like you have an obligation to pass down this knowledge, or like how do you think, how do you do
to
that?
the right people, I do, and I don't mind showing people. And I've done videos and on how to on different things, building pipes or building fiberglass seat pans or different stuff, and I put that out there. But a lot of that, I just kind of keep it to myself too. It's the trade secrets that I know that I've had to learn, teach myself over the years, and just by trial and error, and figured out the best way and the quickest way to do things and the most efficient. And that's just something you do with age. And everybody goes, people come to me and say, "Man, you're a great bike builder." And I go, "No, I'm not. I'm just older, and I've made more mistakes than you have when you're younger." My pile of junk parts and scrap parts where I made mistakes is over there, a big pile.
Yeah.
Now, you're young, you got a little pile. When your pile is as big as my pile, then you're going to be a great bike builder.
Yeah.
And that's I says, I'm no different than you. It's just that I've made more mistakes and fixed them.
Yeah.
And that's the answer to that. It's a real simple answer.
Yeah, it's like I think everything in life,
of
applies
course.
to that. I mean,
in writing, I'm sure you've got shortcuts and things that you do. You just showed me your program on how you interview, and I saw that right off, and I like it. The question and answer and the back and forth, and that's the sign of a guy that does good interviews. And I should probably shut up a little bit and let you ask some questions. But once I get going
yeah, it's great though.
I get rolling. I have a lot of things to say, and I think that's because I'm an older guy and I've got a lot of knowledge on this stuff. Anything motorcycle, I probably got the answer for. I've worked on a lot of bikes and stuff like that. But
well, that's a good segue into maybe just going back a little bit now. Like, so, like, as a kid growing up, were you even into bikes? It sounds like from me,
I started building cars when I was 13. I got my first car was a 1929 Model A.
And that back then, did you have to be 16 to drive?
No, I was 13. Back then,
you could drive.
I lived in Southern California. There's a lot of orange groves, so we'd just sneak the cars out to the orange groves and go drive around in the orange groves, and that's where you learn to drive. But my mom bought me a Sears and Roebuck little tool chest. Was like $29, and then with that, I had every tool in it that I needed to pull the car apart. So I tore it all the way down to the frame and rebuilt it in about 6 months. Painted it myself.
When you were 13 years old?
Yeah, well, 13 years old.
And what made you even want to do something like that?
I was building model cars, and I was just very mechanical, and I was just intrigued by cars. And you got to remember, that was back in the American graffiti days, and hot rods and stuff. And
you had a shop teacher in those early days.
And I was really into that stuff. So long story short, in high school, I had 19 different cars.
Wow.
And they called me Mr. Car because I'd buy them and fix them and paint them and flip them, and I was doing two at a time. And I was in 11th grade. I was driving a 956 Porsche Roadster because I had been trading and swapping it. So I was in my yearbook, they called me Mr. Car. Yeah. And
are those the cars that you built in the display case up there?
Yeah,
I took a picture of those. So.
There's a lot of cars that I've built. A lot of cars. In fact, I got another.
So those are just the glue assembly kits.
Yeah, those are just little metal cars that I've got. But as you saw back here, I'm building a '57 Chevy Bel Air Gasser right now, and a Gasser was a drag car from the '60s. They used to sit high in the front end, and they're notorious badass vehicles, and so I'm replicating one right now, and I'm putting a blown motor in it, and I just got it back from the paint shop. And then I got another car that I've got over here, a '57 Ford sedan delivery with a 427 Ford race motor in it. And I had the story behind that. Everything's got a story behind it. And that car, I had one just like it in high school, and they're very rare. Sedan delivery is very rare. And I got so many speeding tickets in it in high school. Back then, you had to go before the juvenile judge, and my mom took me down before the juvenile judge, and he said, "Your car or your license, you can't have both. You got to sell that car." And I sold it, of course, to keep my license. And I carried two little black and white pictures of that around for the next 30 years, and I put that on the top of my bucket list. I'm going to find another one of those and build it.
That's awesome.
So we found the body, just the bare body to that car back east, and we went and got the body. And I spent 5 years rebuilding it, and Now it's worth about $150,000 and only runs on racing fuel. But that was on my bucket list, is to get that car. Everybody's got that one car they had when they were young that they wish they had again. And the 57 Gasser, the Bel Air Gasser, that black car back there, I'm actually building that for my daughter. She's a motorhead too, believe it or not. Yeah. And
were your friends in the building, or?
Oh yeah. Well, we were building bikes and cars. We were all motorheads, and with Denver and I, we were into the drag boats, so we're building drag boats, we're building cars.
But
we're
even back
bikes.
earlier in high school, were you? Because sounds like you were just purely cars back then.
Yeah, I was cars, and then I started hanging out at Denver sweeping floors as
and
a
what
young,
made you do
young
that?
kid.
Just for
I was probably 16. And I started hanging out there and sweeping floors and stuff. He couldn't get rid of me.
But what made you want to go there?
I just went there because I wanted to learn how to do body work and paint better. And I knew he was the best. And I thought, well, I'll go hang out there. And he'd try to run me off, and I wouldn't leave.
And he was 4 years older than you said?
5 years older.
5 years older.
And yeah, go on, kid, get out of here. No, I'm going to sweep the floors. I wouldn't leave. And finally he started showing me stuff, how to do body work and how to paint and stuff like that. He took me under his wing, and throughout life we became best friends.
And did you feel that when you were working on these cars, was it feel like it was a natural evolution? Did you feel like it was something you had
it's some people are just talented with their hands, and they can think ahead, like 2 steps ahead, like I was telling you, point A to point B. And that's something he taught me, and something I had a talent for. And it just, throughout my life, I've worked with my hands, and I can pretty much build anything. I can build you a house. I can build you a car, a bike, a boat.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, like, to have that confidence at 13 years old. I mean, to take a motor apart and put it. I mean, I was watching cartoons probably still at 13.
But see, back then, we didn't have computers or anything else. So
all right,
you wanted to go out and do that kind of stuff. And there was a couple of other kids in the neighborhood interested in cars too. So they used to come over, and we used to put on our overalls and crawl underneath these cars and tear them apart, pull the bodies off, and just paint them, and just we were just having fun back then. Custom cars were cool. So I was full boat into the custom cars. And then when Denver got that Harley and a couple of the other guys, and then I got one, then it was our direction was full on Harley. And then we developed the biker lifestyle. Back then only bikers rode bikes. It wasn't. You didn't have the doctors and lawyers and veterinarians like you do now that are riding motorcycles. The only people that were riding motorcycles back then were outlaws.
So he shows up on a Harley, probably super loud, revving that exhaust, and you guys all
tore it
came
apart
out.
Immediately, and got to make it better and
faster.
To make the front end longer, we took a stock Harley Springer front end, and we took Model A wishbones. They were shaped the same length, and we welded them on over the top of the front end and made it longer.
And you instantly wanted to make it longer.
Oh yeah,
already?
yeah.
And there was
just the style. Let's build some long bikes, and we built some pretty long radical bikes, and they looked so awesome going down the road with the chrome front ends on them, and the chrome and the beautiful paint jobs and the molding, and so people started coming. Hey, can you do that for us? Can you do that for us? Before you know it, we went worldwide.
Yeah, and then that style was that in the movies, like in the Brando?
No,
days
after we started building those bikes, then a couple years later, or 3 or 4 years later, the movie Easy Rider came out.
All right, so
with Dennis Hopper and Peter Fonda,
yeah.
And Fonda had one a bike with a long glide front, and not near as long as the stuff that we did, but I think that's when people started picking up on that culture. And there was that cultural revolution going on during the heyday of the hippies and stuff. And you were either a hippie or a biker or a beatnik, so pick one, or a hot rodder. And so we picked the biker lifestyle and never really looked back. We just, we're bikes 7 days a week, and it was a brotherhood. We all watched out for each other. If my bike broke down, they'd come out and pick me up, take the bike back to their house, would stay up all night fixing it, and be back on the road the next day.
Yeah.
And no questions asked, no money exchange, none of that stuff. It was kind of what they call a biker code. Even if you're driving down the road and you see a biker broke down back then, even if you didn't know him, you went and got your pickup truck and loaded them up, took them to your house, fed them, spent the night if he had to, fixed his bike in your garage, put him on the road, and have some beers with him. And a week later, here comes your carburetor back.
That's cool.
And it was a trust factor and a brotherhood that was formed between the bikers, because we all had to stick together because we didn't have anybody else. So all the bikers stuck together, and here would come your carburetor with a 12-pack of beer or something with it, and the guy had sent it back to you.
And when did that So when did motorcycles fully come on the scene? I guess.
I think after the movie Easy Rider, a lot of people started buying Harleys.
That's when it really revved up. But what about the Hells Angels and the biker
Hells
gangs
Angels
and
started,
all that? Because they were before.
Well, they started in 1948 in San Bernardino, California, where we're from.
Yeah,
we're from San Bernardino. It's called Purdue. That's the short version of it. But Purdue was the bike capital of the world. That's where the Hells Angels started. The motorcycle club, the Vagos, started right behind our shop in San Bernardino. And there was 3 or 4 other major bike clubs of that era that started. And so San Bernardino was the Mecca. It was the Mecca of Southern California and the Mecca of the bike clubs. They all started in there, and it was a rough little town. And
is that mostly where it originated throughout the entire world? Started in Bernardino or Purdue and expanded throughout?
Yes, it did. The Hells Angels started in San Bernardino. Now they're worldwide.
Yeah.
And so are a lot of the other clubs. But it all started right there. So if you looked up history and you had to put a point of where all this started, it started in San Bernardino, California.
Yeah.
Now there was different places. Then shortly thereafter, they started San Francisco and Oakland and different charters, and before you knew it, started spreading. But there were people other places, don't get me wrong, that had bikes and stuff. We weren't the only ones that had bikes. I mean, they had bikes in New York, they had them in the South, they had them all over the United States, but there wasn't that connection. You weren't tied together by the internet or magazines yet or anything like that. So when the magazines first came out, we were in all the magazines.
Yeah,
Street Chopper magazine and Easy Rider and all those. When those magazines came out, then it started tying the West Coast and the East Coast together, started blending, and you start seeing the different styles of bikes starting to morph together. Where the guys back east, wow, we like that Denver style bike, and we started sending front ends and frames back east, and they started doing their bikes, and vice versa. Northern California, they had the cafe racer style, they called it, or the fast bikes. We had the long bikes, which were the cruisers, the boulevard bikes, and the ones you see running down Sunset Strip in Hollywood, being cool as hell and out on the road doing motorcycle runs, but. They up north, they had a different style bike, and then they started picking up our style, and we started picking up their style. So once the magazines came out, that's when everything kind of started coming together, and then worldwide they started coming together. In Sweden, they even had a bike club named Denver Choppers that was named after our shop.
Okay.
And they started riding the long bikes, and they started calling them the Swedish style bikes. But a Swedish style bike is actually a Denver Chopper.
Okay.
And those guys got a hold of me a few years back and sent me a poster for their anniversary of the Denver Chopper Bike Club. And I'm fortunate enough to have pictures of those guys with their clubhouse with Denver Choppers on it and everything. And so,
cool.
So it turned into a legend. The Denver Choppers is a legend in the industry, and most people, you can ask anybody that actually rides, and everybody knows Denver Choppers.
Yeah. And
because we're where it started, and I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of the fact that I've kept this thing going. Because it could have died with Denver in '92 when he passed away. This whole thing could have gone away, and I wasn't gonna let that happen. I wasn't gonna let that happen, and I kept my promise. And my promise was to keep Denver Choppers going. And so one of these days when I see him again, I'm gonna say, okay, it was a lot of hard work. I had fun. What do you think?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we're at as far as the history of Denver Choppers. A lot of guys work there. We've sold a lot of T-shirts, sold a lot of bikes. We're books, magazines, TV all over the world. I travel all over the world doing bike shows. I go to Dubai. I go to Italy. I go all over. They just asked me. They were here last week. Want me to go to Indonesia and come do a show there. And so I do a lot of traveling. I do TV and so that's been fun, and I do a lot of interviews, a lot of radio shows, and a lot of history of motorcycles. And people always say, well, you build these beautiful old style choppers. And I says, well, the thing that's cool about me doing them, I'm not trying to replicate something somebody else did. I actually did it. I was there. So I'm just doing what I've always done.
Yeah.
I'm not some young guy trying to replicate what was going on. I was the guy that was doing it. So that makes a big difference, as far as history. Nobody can say, well, you weren't there, you didn't do this and do that. And, well, let's look it up and see, and that usually quiets them down, But,
what were you doing? So when you were into riding, so what kind of lifestyle were you living back then? I mean, it's like to be able to. So you didn't go to college or any of that stuff.
No,
obviously.
I just
did you finish high school or anything?
Yeah, I finished high school, and I actually started framing houses as a young kid. So I'd frame houses during the day, and when I'd get off work at 3:30, I'd run to the shop and put the rest of the day in at the shop at Denver Choppers. And I used to mold the frames. Back then, the frame molding was something that was really in vogue and everybody wanted, and I was good at it. So I'd leave my carpenter job, and I'd go by the shop, and I would pick up a frame and take it home at night. And work in the garage till midnight, molding a frame.
Yeah.
Get up and go to work the next day, take that frame back, pick up another one, and then I always spent the weekends at the shops, all day Saturday working at Denver's, and then go on all the motorcycle runs. We used to every other weekend.
And what were those like? What was that?
Well, a pack of us would get together. We're always the same group, and we would.
And these were just friends, or were there any?
They're all Denver Chopper related guys.
Okay.
And we're like a family, and we'd all take off and we'd ride to the Colorado River from
oh wow, cool.
Parker, Arizona. Denver had a trailer there, and that's how we got into boats. Denver and I both had fast boats that were lake boats, and so we would ride our bikes to the Colorado River and spend the weekend there on our ride there on our bikes, play with our boats, and then go back to work on Monday morning. So that was kind of something we did all the time.
Did you guys wear helmets back then, or was that?
No, they didn't have helmet laws. They didn't have helmet laws back then. So it was. I don't know how a lot of us survived it, but we did.
How were the bugs? I mean, because sometimes even now I wear my helmet, and sometimes you get nailed. It's
well, you just do. That's part of being a biker. Is just try not to swallow.
Yeah.
But we'd ride on the weekends, and it was adventure. If you went in your car, you could make it in 2.5 hours or 3 hours. On our bikes, we'd spend all day because we have to stop and hit every bar on the way.
Oh, you're
and we used to have small gas tanks, so then we had to hit every gas station to fill up our little gas tanks.
Yeah.
And then we had to have a beer or two while we're waiting for everybody to get gas, and then we get on the road. So it was always the adventure. The travel was always the fun part. It wasn't the destination; it was the journey, as they say.
Yeah.
So our journeys were always a lot of fun, and we'd always have a chase truck follow us, a truck that'd follow behind us. And you always carried the beer and the dog and the pot. And if your bike broke down on the road, they'd throw it in the back of the truck. And then now you're riding with the beer truck, so you're back to the truck drinking beer. The bike's broke down. And then you pull over and the guy's got a flat tire on his bike. So then there goes your front wheel.
All right.
Another guy's carburetor goes out. Back then, all the stuff interchanged between the bikes. The knuckleheads and the panheads and the shovelheads. So then your carburetor would be gone. Then your generator would be gone. Your bike became the parts bike for everybody.
All right.
To keep everybody else going. So you get home on the weekend, and then you go to everybody's house and go to their garage and get your part back and drink a few beers, and go over to this guy's house and get your generator and drink a few beers. And it was just something that we did.
Yeah.
You always kept the other guy going, and so you always hated to be the first guy in the back of the truck that you broke down. So that made you want to really maintain your bike so you wouldn't end up in the back of the run truck. But it wasn't always bad because you got to smoke some pot and drink some beer and listen to some music, but you'd rather be up in front riding. But that was all part of it. We all had our turn in the run truck, and that was just part of the brotherhood.
Yeah.
It's just what we did, and we laughed and smiled about it and joked about it. And I love looking back at some of the old pictures that we have. I see of the run truck and bikes in the back, and everybody with long hair and long beards and just rowdy and just partying, and it was just with just our lifestyle, and it was great. I wouldn't change anything in my life. Been in trouble a few times, and you know, worked my way through those problems like everybody else. And
where else did you ride as far as besides the Colorado River?
oh, we'd go up Northern California, go to June Lake, would go to Lake Tahoe, would go to Bass Lake. There were different runs that the bikers on 4th of July weekend would ride one place where all the bikers would go. The Northern California guys would meet the Southern California guys at June Lake or Bass Lake or different places like that, or would go to a place in outside of Palm Springs in Indio or Coachella, where we used to have a pit run where it was a big open pit and all the bike clubs would come together and they'd barbecue some pigs in the ground and maybe a cow or something, and you take your sleeping bags and go spend the weekend with all the clubs and that were getting along. Not everybody got along.
Yeah. Were you with all the clubs, like the Hells Angels?
Yeah.
And all those
would
guys?
ride around with everybody. And they all came to our shop to get their bikes worked on. So,
and how were they? Like, what were they? Because
they were just people. You got to remember.
Yeah.
You got to remember that just because you're a member of a club doesn't make you a bad guy. I mean, they've got wife and kids and families, and they got kids going to school and playing baseball, and they got to have jobs, and they got to, you know, there's a lot of club members get a bad rap. They shouldn't.
Yeah.
They shouldn't, because they're hardworking people. They pay their taxes. They have jobs. They raise a family.
But they did also have a thing to become the shock and freak out like the normal people. And
some people got freaked out and stuff because they didn't know how to handle it or didn't know. If they ever took the time to sit down like you and I are talking right now, and sit down and take a minute and get to know the guy, you'd find out that he likes dogs and he likes to go hunting and fishing, and he likes to work on motorcycles, and his kid plays baseball, and you know, and he's into guitar, and I think they're normal people. They're just motorcycle enthusiasts with a patch on their back. But you don't want to mess with them, or one of them, or theirs. You know, the bottom line is you get what you give. Treat them with respect, and they'll give you respect.
Yeah.
As long as you're respectful for them, you'll never have a problem in your life. They don't go out looking for trouble. They don't want any trouble. You treat them with respect, and they'll give you respect, and the respect is something that's earned.
But there were characters. I mean, do you ever you know Hunter S. Thompson, right?
Sure.
Were you around when that was going on? When he was?
I was around, but I didn't know him personally. But I know everything about that whole thing that was going on in the background.
And what was? Did you know that he was in there, like hanging out with them and doing a story?
That was more of a Northern California thing.
Oh, that was more northern.
That was Northern California deal. The guys that I knew and I used to run around, they're all Southern California guys. Okay. But that was a Northern California deal, and you know, they took care of them, you know, and you know, there's some things you got to show respect, and I think in some ways he didn't show respect. And
well, they eventually just they left. They beat him up at the end of it.
It's all about respect. Remember what I just told you?
Yeah.
You get what you give. You show respect, you never have a problem.
But I mean, they do have characters in there though, and they do.
Oh
have,
yeah.
I mean, the names, the attitudes, and it's like what they. They represent the antithesis of what society is. Or
but.
Kind of like an image.
But like I know a lot of them, and you get to know them and talk to them just like you and I sitting down and talking right now. You know, I sit down and go to lunch with them, or I'm building bikes for them right now. I've got some in the back, and then I've got, you know, I go to runs with them, and I go to Sturgis with them, and I do all kinds of things, and I meet them when I go around traveling around the world. I'll run into them and talk to them, and you know, I know a lot of them, and a lot of them know me, so it's something that, a trust that's been built up over 50 years.
Yeah.
You know, and they know what they get with me, and I know what I get with them, and I treat them with the utmost respect, and I never have a problem.
And what do they? Did you ever think about joining a group? And what what were you thinking when you were going through that? And also, what do you think that they gained from? Is it like they gain the brotherhood, or like what are they after?
It's a brotherhood, and there's just no doubt about it. That's what it is. You know, I can't speak for them. I'm not a Hells Angel, and I can't speak for them, and nor would I even try. You know, that'd be disrespectful. But from an outsider looking in, as an observer and being around them, they're just people that are like-minded, and they're motorcycle enthusiasts, and like I said, you get to know them one-on-one. They're great people, and there's a lot. I trust them any day more than I trust somebody in a suit.
Politicians.
Politicians. I mean, lawyers or anybody like that. You know, these guys, you know what you're getting. You know your friend, and you can look them in the eye, and they'll look you in the eye, and they can. If you're fake, they see right through you. And I trust them more with my family than I would anybody else. You know, it's that solid and it's that strong, and that's why that club is so strong, and that's why it's worldwide, is because of the respect.
Yeah. What about the whole, like, why then are so, or I mean, I mean, you can't figure out the mentality of everybody or put words in someone's mouth, but like the different clubs, like the Mongols or the Hell's Angel, it's like you have the different clubs, and it's just like the gangs, or, you know, people, like the fact that they are so anti each other. Is that like?
Well, I don't want to speak to that. That's something that's none of my business.
Yeah.
And I don't want to give an opinion on it one way or another, because I could be wrong. So I'm not gonna speak out of turn and give an opinion on that. Everybody has their own opinions, but you'll never get mine.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
You'll never get mine. I have respect for everybody out there, and I would never do anything disrespectful.
And you know Sonny Barger? Like,
yes.
Yeah.
Good friend of mine, and I've known him for years and years, and he stayed at my house a few times when I was in Vegas. My shop was there for 18 years, and he had stopped by and got to know him quite well, and I run into him once in a while, and it's always nice to see him and talk and get caught up, and I think the world of him. I think he's if you look for the ultimate biker, if you had to say who's the ultimate biker in the world, it's Sonny Barger.
And why would you say that?
Because he's done so much for the whole culture, the industry, and he's a person that when he talks you listen, because he's always right.
All right.
And he's very, very loyal to his friends and his brothers. Brothers first, and then his friends. And he's the kind of guy that you want to sit down and talk with, because you learn a lot. You learn a lot about life and the experiences that he's gone through in life, and I just think he's a wonderful human being.
Nice.
You know, and every once in a while people say, "Yeah, Sonny Barger for president." You know,
yeah,
because people adore him and they love him and admire him.
Well, it is,
and I do.
Yeah.
I do. I think he's one of the greatest things that ever happened to the motorcycle world.
Well, I mean, it's just wild that he became like an icon. He became part of the entire conversation.
He was one of the original guys, and you know, and he's helped create everything, and he's loyal as can be, and he's just a great person. I just can't say enough about him. He's just such a good guy.
But yeah, we could transition to. So then, how did you know Dave Mann then as the painter?
Yeah,
was he
Mann.
Around during that time, or how
Dave
did that?
Mann, okay, here's a story on Dave Mann. Dave Mann was from the Midwest, and
what area?
He St. Louis.
Okay, I'm from Illinois. That's why I asked.
He belonged to a club, a good club called the Alphasteros. And Alphasteros were pioneers in the chopper. They're mostly a chopper bike club, and still are today, and very well recognized and respected club. Well, he was a member of that, and he was an artist, as you know. He was the Picasso and the Da Vinci and everything of our culture, the motorcycle world.
Yeah.
And he used to do the paintings, the watercolor paintings that would show up in Easy Rider magazine every month. And it would be the size of, if you were to open the magazine up in the middle, it's exactly the size of 2 pages, you know, with a staple in the middle.
Yeah.
And he'd do these beautiful, beautiful paintings of motorcycles, and usually the lifestyle. They'd be out on a motorcycle run, or they'd be at a picnic, or they'd be working on their bikes, or they'd be at a bike show. I mean, it was all about the biker life and lifestyle of Dave Mann, you know, and the bikes that he painted. And he used to paint a lot of Denver bikes. He liked our long bikes. So every month, you know, as young guys growing up, we couldn't wait to get Easy Rider, because there would be a new Dave Mann painting in there. And that's what you wallpaper your garage with Dave Mann paintings.
Nice.
And I was no different than anyone else. I had the wallpaper of Dave Mann paintings, and then all my traffic tickets stapled to the wall over here. So you had both. If you were a biker, you'd have your Dave Mann paintings and then your traffic tickets stapled to the wall.
And he was also, again, like I just think like he had nonconformist, anti-mainstream, sort of that sort of.
He was a biker.
Yeah,
he was a biker.
And what about that appealed to you? I guess then.
Well,
like,
more than anything, I loved his work. You know, I was always a big fan of. I couldn't wait to see what Dave Mann's going to come up with next. And his stuff is so realistic, you know. And he started out doing little magazines. He'd do some paintings for Ed Roth, and Ed Roth was a custom car builder and a biker back in the '60s. And he would Dave would do the paintings for him, and Ed Roth would put his name on the painting.
Okay.
And then he went to work. Then he went over to Easy Rider, and then he got full credit. You know that they were Dave Mann paintings, and they were getting better and better, and everybody just loved seeing those things.
And he also started doing more like surrealistic sky distortions, ghosts on the highway riding next to him. And it's like, was he into like psychedelic?
He was very mystical paintings, you know, and kind of mind expanding. Some of the stuff that he would do, it's like, you know, it was almost like outside of your body experience, you know, or a dream. He'd capture it in paint.
Was he? Did you know him personally, or
I'd met him a couple times?
Was he into like doing the like psychedelics in that era, or doing anything?
I don't know
like
if he was or not personally, but you look at some of his paintings and they're pretty far out, you know.
Yeah.
But everybody was kind of far out back then, and so he was no different than anybody else. But his work was unbelievable.
And then, how did you end up becoming in one of the paintings of his?
Well, it's a crazy deal that. I was in a lot of magazines, and Easy Rider magazine really got behind me, and my bikes are always in Easy Rider magazine, and I got to be good friends with those guys and built them a couple bikes. So, well, anyway, the 30th anniversary Easy Rider magazine was coming around, and they said, "Hey, how about building a bike for our 30th anniversary?" And I said, "I would like that. I'll build you a bike." So I built a bike for Easy Rider for the 30th anniversary. And then I took one that from 30 years prior, and I restored it, an old Denver bike. So I took them both down to L.A. to get the photo shoot done, and that's where they used to do the photo shoots. And so I took and just dropped the bike off there to get the photo shoot done, and didn't think any more about it. I thought, well, a few months the bikes are going to come out in the magazine. And that was always happens. Still happens today. I still got there's a bike from last month that came out in the magazine. I'm coming out in another magazine this month. But so it was the 30th anniversary, and I had no idea that they were going to do the painting of my two bikes. And me sitting on one of them running down the road, and my buddy sitting on the other one. And what Dave did is he took the pictures of the bikes from the photo shoot, and then he just painted me on one bike and painted my friend on the other. And if you look at the painting, it looks like me and another guy running down the road next to each other on these beautiful long choppers. Well, so I get the 30th anniversary magazine in the mail, and I opened it up, and there it is, a Dave Mann painting of me and two of my bikes.
That had to be kind of crazy.
It was mind blowing. It's like the best thing that ever happened to me, because if you know anything about the history of Dave Mann, very seldom did he ever paint real people.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No, they're mostly all fictitious. There's two or three guys. Tiny, I know he painted, and then there's two or three other guys where he actually painted real people, but mostly they're the fictitious people on these bikes. So when I saw that it was me and two of my bikes, I was just blown away. And then I got the call that Dave Mann passed away.
Wow.
And I talked to the editor.
Was that his last painting
Yep.
then? Oh, wow.
So I talked to the editor, Easy Rider, and he goes, "Yeah, we wanted to surprise you with that painting." And he says it was his last painting, and to be honest, Dave was in pretty poor health. We didn't know if he was going to make it through that painting or not. And he finished the painting, and then he passed away. So that's probably one of the biggest honors I have, is being in Dave Mann's last painting. And I've got them around here in the shop.
And where's the painting at?
I've got it.
Oh, you've got it? And
Easy Rider made a gift of that painting to me.
Wow, that's...
And it's priceless. And it's put away where nobody will ever see it or find it.
You don't even let people look at it?
No, I got prints around here. I got the posters and stuff.
Yeah.
And they can even buy, the posters from me. But no, nobody will see that.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I mean, it solidifies you, I guess, in the culture and
well, that's going on. My nickname, and I'm not trying to be braggadocious or anything, but my nickname is the Godfather of Choppers, and that was given to me by my peers.
All right.
So it wasn't something. Well, who am I going to be today? I'm going to give myself a name. It never happened that way.
You went from Mr. Carr to the Godfather of Choppers.
The Godfather of Choppers, and I don't use that term myself, but other people do, and I think the Godfather of Choppers was Denver.
All right.
And I was the heir apparent. So that's the way I look at it.
All right.
And just like when the movie The Godfather, when the Godfather passed away, then
Michael
Al Pacino, Michael, took over as the Godfather. So it's just and I'm sure when I'm gone, somebody else will be the Godfather.
Yeah.
I don't know who it'll be, but.
And how was that relationship with you in Denver? You said you guys became best friends, because it sounds like at first it was kind of like a brother scenario.
We were, in fact, I did the biker build-off against Indian Larry on Discovery Channel.
Yeah, I read about that.
And they filmed that, and it was kind of during, it was two bike builders, me and Indian Larry, going against each other building bikes. He's from New York. I'm from Vegas. And there's a storyline. So my storyline on my side of the build was I always talk about Denver and my best friend and lifestyle. So I'm going through the show. If you watch on YouTube, Mondo versus Indian Larry, biker build off, you'll see that I'm talking about Denver and what he meant to me and the promise that I kept and about the drag boats and stuff like that. And when he died, I stepped in and tried to fill his big boots, and it wasn't easy. It was a hard deal for me to try to live up to the image of this tremendous man, but I just soldiered through and did it. But so I'm talking about losing my best friend and having to step in and take over Denver Choppers, which was an icon in the industry, and about all the trials and tribulations. So I'm talking about all that all the way through. Now, Indian Larry, he had his shop in New York, and he was a very well-known bike builder, been on a couple biker build-offs, and had a huge fan base and following. So him and I did our biker build-off, and at the end, we pulled into a venue, and we've been riding for 3 days, helicopters filming us and stuff, and we ended up in Charlotte, North Carolina at a bike show, which was all planned. And so we pull in there, and the lady asked Indian Larry to go out back and do his trick. Long story short, where he used to stand on the seat of his motorcycle and put his arms out,
all right, like
an iron cross, or like Jesus on the cross. And he used to stand on the seat of his bike while he was running down the road. I mean, it was a very dangerous thing. And so she asked him to go do it, and he really didn't want to do it. And we'd been talking about it for about 3 days.
Talking about the stunt? About
the stunt, that he wasn't comfortable doing it. And right before we got to the venue, I was riding next to him, and the cameras were shut off and stuff. And all of a sudden, he jumps up on his bike and does that trick and sets it back down. And we all knew what we were doing, because we were all talking. All the guys in the group were talking about it. He didn't want to do it. And we knew that he was just building up his courage to see if he's okay. Well, anyway, so we got inside, and we're signing autographs and stuff. And the lady put it on the show, said, "Hey, I got a place set up out back. I want you to go out back and do your trick." And he goes, "Well, I really don't want to do it, and I haven't been paid." He got paid money to do it.
Jeez.
She held up a brochure with a picture of him on the cover doing it. She said, "What are you going to do? Let your public down? They're out back waiting for you." And I saw him go walking by me, and he was white as a ghost. Oh, and my girlfriend had just flown in, and she was standing next to me. She goes, "What's the matter with Larry? He's white as a ghost." I said, "Stand here next to me. Don't go outside. Stay here with me." And he went out back, and he did that trick. And to do that trick properly, he'd done it a million times. You got to need a long, steady blocker. You get the bike going fast enough. You feel comfortable. You stand on the seat with your feet on the handlebars, your hands on the handlebars, and then you slowly let yourself up, put your arms out. It's a process. Well, she had him in a caged-in area. It was only about 300 foot long, from what I understand, and it was starting to rain. So he got the bike going, and he stood up, and the bike wobbled. He wasn't going fast enough, and he went down and hit his head. And so that was long story short, we lost Larry on that episode of Biker Build Off. But tragic deal.
Yeah,
you know, and still to today, he's an icon in the industry.
Well, it's like weird that he had that premonition.
Yeah, he did.
That
he
whole
did
time,
have it.
almost for days.
And
almost.
if you watch that program, they're interviewing him and his wife Bambi. They're sitting in his apartment in New York, in Brooklyn, and they're talking about life. And he goes, "If I leave tomorrow, I've had a good life."
And that was the day before.
That was before he left on to go do the filming. But they were talking about that, and then when I was riding with him and I were having some private conversations, and I kept telling him, "Larry, you don't feel good about it, don't do it." You know. And Billy Lane was there with us, and a bunch of other people were with us, and we told him, "Don't, you don't feel good about it, don't do it." But he did, and you know, it's such his life, and so then I lost another friend, and so when I was in Brooklyn, you know, we had a kind of a eulogy there. They had a block party for him after he was gone, and they had me get up on stage at the end of a Discovery Channel program. You see me up on stage, and I looked around at his crew. You know, there was Kano and Paul Cox and Bobby Seeger and 3 or 4 other guys. I can't remember their names now, but I apologize. But
Bobby Seeger, the singer, or different?
Bobby Seeger, the guy that owns Indian Larry now.
Okay.
But so they were all there, and Bambi was standing there, and I turned around and looked at the guys, and I says, "You know, we're in a unique situation." And I says, "I know what it feels like to be in your place.
Yeah.
You just lost your best friend and the guy that owned the shop, and you know, this is a tragic deal. I know how you guys feel, but I know what Larry would have wanted, and I know what Denver wanted. He'd want the shop to keep going." And I says, "Now you guys are in that unique position that I was in.
Yeah.
You got to fill those boots." And I turned around and looked at him. "What are you guys going to do?" And they says, "We're going to keep the shop going as Indian Larry Legacy."
Nice.
And that's what it is today, Indian Larry Legacy. And so it was ironic during the show that I was talking about the passing of my best friend, and then we lose Larry, and these guys lost their best friend.
Yeah.
So that was
crazy.
very, very ironic. It was, and they say it's one of the most requested shows ever seen on Discovery. That people always watch it, want to watch that because it tells such a story. It's almost a mythical story to see this. It's just almost like you're on a cloud and you're floating. It just can't be real. It's kind of a surreal deal. And in fact, I've got a motorcycle I'm building in the back right now that's an Indian Larry bike.
Okay.
That guy came to me and says, "Can you build me an Indian Larry bike?" It's got the question mark on the sissy bar, and we're building it in the Indian Larry style.
All right.
Which I knew because I knew as a friend of mine.
And what's the definitive style
it's
for
style. That? Every builder has their own style. So I'm back there replicating an Indian Larry bike.
And what's
right
his, like, what are the main attributes?
Well, the twisted front end, the gas tank that's concave gas tank on the side, the stance, the handlebars, the risers, the paint job, and the painter that was just in here is going to do the painting on it.
Okay.
And he's going to actually do a mural of Indian Larry riding his bike, standing on the seat with his arms out.
Wow.
Is going to be on the top of the gas tank, and on the sides in gold leaf, it's going to say Indian Larry.
That's cool.
And then it's got the question mark cut out on the sissy bar. I put that in the back, so. It's going to be 100% tribute bike to Indian Larry. So here we are 16 years later, and he's as big today as he ever was. And people are still remembering him and honoring him and wanting bikes like his. And I'm honored to be building this bike.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about it. And if you're taking pictures, go back there and you take a picture of the sissy bar, and you'll see the question mark, and you'll see that I'm doing the fiberglass seat pans for it right now. But I'm building it in his likeness and his lifestyle, and the whole time I'm back there building it, I'm thinking about him.
Yeah, well, that's good too.
So that's kind of a cool deal to a unique position. And you know what's funny? I just thought about it. I'm back there replicating Denver's bike. Before he died, he had an orange shovel head that was iconic in all the magazines. He had several bikes, but I'm building the clone to that bike right now.
All right,
it's sitting back here as well.
And you're building them both at the same time, so there's another.
In fact, and that envelope right there is the bike I'm building. It's on the cover of an old magazine, and that manila envelope right there, and that's the bike I'm replicating for Denver.
That's another ironic thing, I guess.
I didn't even think about it till now. Here I'm
both replications of the bike.
I'm replicating Larry's and replicating Denver's. This is something that I didn't even think about to right this minute.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's mystical.
Yeah, it's another addition to it.
Yeah, that's kind of mystical. So that.
But what was Denver like? How was he as a person? I guess.
You know what? He's one of those guys. Him and I were closer than brothers, and during that show, he said, I call him my brother from a different mother. And I think that caught on because I hear other people saying it. I go, he is my brother from a different mother, and I meant it. And I said that on there, and you know, it was one of those things. Whatever he owned, and I needed, it was mine, and whatever I had was his. You know, I can tell you a couple stories. One time, I left one of my show bikes there. It was in his showroom, and I came back. We're out having a few beers, and I came back and where's my bike? And he goes, I sold it. Some guy came in here with a grocery bag full of money. So I sold 3 of our bikes, and he just threw me a handful of money. He says, go build another one. Another time, I had a really nice El Camino and all tricked out, and I come back from drinking again and partying with the boys, and where's my El Camino? He says, I got you that 64 Corvette Stingray sitting out there. Yeah, he did. But that's the way he was. Excuse me. Another time, when we were drag boat racing, we had the drag boat shop, and we were racing against each other in the same class, and his boat was new, and was always beating mine, and I was always pissed. You got a new boat. You got more money than me. You got a faster boat. So one time he called me and says, come on down here early. So I got down there, and we go to the drag boat shop to get our boats ready to go to racing that weekend in Pomona, California. And I go, where's my boat? He threw a cover off. He goes, there's your brand new boat, so shut up and stop crying. He says, now you got a new boat. You don't have any excuses. And he gave me a brand new drag boat.
Yeah, wow.
But that's the way he was with me.
All right.
You know, and that was
basically, that was the relationship between you two.
Well, it was something that respect that was earned. I remember I mentioned that earlier. It
sounded like you guys were like little bro. It was like a bigger brother, younger brother,
little brother,
thing, where it's like you're annoyed by the
we
little
used to,
brother.
Everywhere we went, if we went drag boat racing, we always shared the same room.
Okay.
And we went partying or anything we did, and I was contracting back then, and I was making some big money, and he had some big money. So we had a 3-boat drag boat team, and we'd go to the races, and we'd have 30 people with us on our crew. So we'd have to buy them all dinner, have to buy them all rooms, and take care of them and their wives and kids for the whole weekend. So we usually had a huge entourage plus 3 big rigs in the boats, and so it was a huge expense. And so he said, "Give me your wallet." And I'd throw in my wallet, and he'd pull out my gold card. Everybody, Mondo's taking care of tonight, all the drinks, everything. And he never said nothing about it because the next time it was on him.
All right.
So it was always, and he'd laugh and smile, and he thought that was funny, you know, that. And I'd just go, oh man, wait till the secretary sees that bill, you know. But that was part of who he was and who I was we never questioned each other. And on the drag boats, would pit next to each other, and if I needed a prop or I needed a broke apart or needed something off I'd be in his trailer stealing his stuff, and he'd go, "What are you doing? What are you doing? Where are you taking my stuff? I need this." And he goes, "Oh, okay."
Let's take it.
And that's all he'd say is, "Oh, okay."
And how old were you then when he passed away?
I was probably about 42.
And how were you? I mean, how was that? I mean, just you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but just like to lose somebody that close to you.
It's like losing a close member of your family. It was the closest person that I've ever lost in my life. And, we meant so much to each other, but it happened. I had to deal with it. You know, it was so big. The funeral was so big that we were in San Bernardino, California, and KTLA, a TV station from L.A., big main station, came out to interview me and Denver's widow and see what was going on in the shop and everything. And they were so moved by all the people. There was like Mecca, people coming there. And
this is just bikes from
all over the place and boat racers. And he was into hot rod people, that the guy ended up coming back for 3 days and filmed for 3 days.
Wow.
And did a documentary. Went to the funeral, and it was a huge funeral. I led the funeral procession on his bike, And then behind that, we had all the bikes, and then we had the all the hot rods, and then we had drag boat racers who were towing the boats.
Wow.
So we had a huge procession, and at the funeral, I got up and did the eulogy. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, but I did that, pulled it off, and the whole thing was just unbelievable. I mean, and they filmed all that, and a couple of days later, it made the AP wire service.
All right.
It was that big. And Denver was that big of an icon. LA papers, everything, and the word all over the world. The word went out, And
the wire service, that's like the news line
AP
to the media
wire
at
service.
the time?
That's like the one that goes around the world.
All right.
And so the guy came back from KTLA and gave me back then they had the videotapes, and he gave me all that. He says, "Here's everything I recorded over the last few days." He says, "I wanted you to have it."
Oh.
And he gave it to me, and to this day I have it. I don't think I've ever watched it.
Okay. And
there was a few things like that where there was TV interviews and different things like that, and they're so vivid in my mind. I know I had to write an article for the Drag Boat News, and I hadn't slept in a couple days, and I knew the deadline was the next day. And that night, I just picked up pen to paper, and I must have wrote a couple thousand words on Denver. And I just looked up the ceiling, and I remember saying, "Denver, help me out here." And I just put my pencil, and I wrote right at the beginning of the article. It's in the magazines. I wish I still had it. I said, "It's going to be one draft. I'm not going to change anything. What I write down is what you get." And I wrote that thing, and it was perfect. And people at the drag boat races were crying when they read it. And it was just so much from the heart. And he had meant so much to so many people. People loved him out at the races. He had such a big heart. And people just absolutely adored him. I mean, at the funeral, there were grandmas in line with bikers and hot rodders and boat racers. He touched people from everywhere, all different walks of life, and all these people were there coming through the line. It was just an unbelievable deal. And I mean, I still think about it today, and that's probably the biggest funeral I've ever been to, and the most people I've ever seen at a funeral. And so that sticks with me, and I guess that's why I've worked so hard to keep my promise and keep this shop going and do what I do. And it hasn't been easy. It's been a roller coaster ride. I mean, the highs and lows in the economy and such. And I'm in the toy business. I don't sell toys when the economy's bad. Or Covis is going on or something like that.
Yeah.
It's you do it more for the passion than the money. I could do other things to make money, but this is what I promised him I'd do, and this is my vocation and what I want to do, and so it's not a job like I told you before. It's a passion and an opportunity that I was gifted.
It keeps you connected with them throughout your entire life, and instead of maybe some people kind of, if stuff like that happens, they turn away. And they kind of,
up there behind you, there's an article. See the picture of Denver there? And that's all that article talks about Denver. Everywhere I go, you can see the pictures of Denver and the drag boats there in that article and stuff. I always talk about him and about he's the guy that started it all, and he's the icon in the industry. I'm just the guy that came along behind him. But I always do that. And if I do, I give people a tour of the shop. I got this big picture of Denver right here. The first thing I do is introduce people to Denver.
Yeah.
I go, here's Denver Mullins, the guy that started the shop in '67.
Yeah.
And my best friend. And that's and that's the first thing I do. I don't say, hey, this is Mondo shop. I know this is Denver Choppers. I just happen to be the guy that works here.
Yeah.
And I've been blessed. I got inducted in the Motorcycle Hall of Fame a couple of years ago. And then
what was that like? Was that?
It was a big honor, but there again, there's hundreds of people there at the ceremony in Sturgis, and they did a video of me and my lifestyle, and most of it talked about Denver, and there was pictures of Denver all over. A friend of mine put the whole thing together with old pictures and videos and stuff. He made this terrific video of my my being there to get my award, and I tell you, I was crying, and I guess it was because I missed him. And I looked at all those pictures and all these memories are running through your mind, and you're going, wow, I wish you were here to see this. And then I looked back at my table, And I had 2 tables full of people that came from bike builders from all over the country that I called and said, I want you at my center. And they're all sitting at my table. And all big names in the industry, they're all sitting at my table. The editor of Easy Rider, the editor of Cycle Source, the Sugar Bear, Billy Lane, just on and on, Aaron Green. All these people are sitting at my table, and they all had black Denver shirts on.
All right, that's nice.
And I looked at them, and I go, these guys could be anywhere in the world right now. They could be anywhere, and they chose to be here with me during this time where I see my picture with my best friend on the on that video, and you go, whew, that's something that'll never be matched again in my life. Was that experience, and to look and see all my friends there, and they're there all to honor, Denver Choppers.
We've had a few, like you were saying, with the David Mann painting, with these moments. I mean, very significant.
And speaking of that, I've got an award out here, and it's the first time it's ever been given out. And it was given out at the Dave Mann Chopper Fest in Ventura. They have a motorcycle show every year called the Dave Mann Chopper Fest in December. Right. And I always go, and I usually get up on stage and give out awards, and I judge the show and stuff like that. And they gave out a painting, a Dave Mann painting that's really nicely done. And it's called the Dave Mann Kind Award. And it was for the person they feel that's lived the lifestyle of Dave Mann. And I've got it hanging on my wall right here. I got it a couple of years ago.
Nice.
I was the first recipient of the Dave Mann Award.
That's awesome.
So that is a huge deal for me, and is to be the recipient of the Dave Mann Award.
Yeah.
That means that, okay, you lived the lifestyle of Dave Mann. You built the bikes like he liked, and you've been true to this business through the thick and thin. And
was that important for you to be true? Or, I mean, it seems like just not only within the lifestyle, but within maybe who you were.
It's don't ever change who you are. Be who you are, and that's who you are. People either like you or hate you or love you or not. I don't care. I try to be good to everybody. I try to treat people the way I want to be treated. And I try to be nice to everybody. And I guess that's important. Denver taught me that. He always told me, he said, people would come into the shop back in the old days in the late 60s or 70s at the bike shop. And maybe there'd be a person of color or something like that. And some of the old hardcore bikers back then were, racist and stuff. And they'd go, what are you doing letting them in here? And Denver turned around and says, you can leave. He said, those people have as much right, and I love them and respect them as much as I do anybody else. And if you're disrespectful to them, you can get out of my shop and not come back. He says, Mondo, he says, always remember this. He said, people can't choose who they are and the way they were born. Yeah. And he said, always remember that and always treat people right. And I've lived by that every day of my life.
Yeah, that's a great thing to say.
Don't ever judge people. Judge the character of the person. Don't ever be that way. And he never was, and people loved him for that.
Yeah.
And one last quick little thought I want to give you. The day that Denver died at the drag boat races, he got killed in our top field boat.
And how fast do those things go? Just
right now, they're about 275 miles an hour.
And was that how fast you guys were going back then? Or?
Back then, they were running about 230.
Wow. And you've driven in one going 230.
I haven't personally. I had other classes that I drove, but Denver was in that class. He advanced up to that class. So anyway, we were there at the races, and I was building the capsules for the drag boat, so I had a display trailer where I'd roll out the capsule and had all the backup gear for racers if they needed some parts. I always had a trailer full of parts, and that was called Denver's Capsules. And we'd always take that trailer to the races, along with our race boats. We had a concession going on. And I had all the drag boat racers everywhere in the country have them sign the door. The doors would flip open, and I'd always have the racers sign their name on there. Boat 559, blown gas, flat bottom, Jim Ermshire, And then everybody signed it. And Denver never would sign the door.
All right.
And so I was right across from him, and he started at the top fuel boat, and he was getting ready to go out, and I didn't know it was going to be his final pass. And he came over to me, and he goes, all right, Crybaby, where's your pin? I always carried the black felt pin on me. Where's your pin, Crybaby? And I gave it the pin. He says, He signed the door. He said the name of that boat was called Public Enemy. The number was 919, so he put Public Enemy 919 Denver Mullins. He signed the door. He goes, there, now you happy? And I says, yeah, thank you, Denver. I always wanted you to sign my door. And that's the last words he ever said to me.
Jeez.
And he went out and got killed. And that's a whole other story there, me dealing with that. But I remember him signing the door on that trailer, and I go, wow, that's a big deal. Finally got it. But there was one other thing that happened that day. Denver was the kind of guy that loved kids, and he loved people, mostly downtrodden people. You know, he liked people that didn't get a lot of attention or anything, because he's always that way. And he was brought up poor, and he was brought up I think he spent some time in a foster home and stuff. So he always had a special feeling for people that were downtrodden. So there was a guy standing in the crowd, and they fired up the boat. There were people all around, you know, Denver standing by the boat where they're tuning it up and getting it ready to go. And he looks over the crowd. He sees this guy standing by himself way in the background, a fat kid. He had a big, heavy-set kid. And Denver parted those people and walked right over through them.
Wow. And
he grabbed that kid. He says, come with me. He took him over behind the ropes, gave him a Denver T-shirt. He says, you're with me. And that kid, he just the
probably
the
made
glow,
his day, yeah.
You know, just, you know, to wow, Denver, thanks, you know, and Denver made sure that kid, you know, he told the guys, take care of this kid. I'm going to go out and run. So, you know, he went out and he got killed. And the funeral, I was standing in the line next to Linda, his widow, and people are coming through the line. And here comes this kid wearing the shirt.
Oh.
And he goes, I didn't know Denver. Till that day, I'd never met the man, but I had heard about him. I wanted to come meet him. And he split it, you know, he split it, the Red Sea, and got a hold of me and put a shirt on me and says, you're with me. And that's the way he was. And he.
How old was the kid at this point? Do you remember?
Early 20s, I'd say.
And how old was he back then, would you say?
Denver?
No, the kid.
The kid was in his early 20s.
Oh, when he got the shirt?
Yeah, when Denver saw him standing in the background.
At the same time, yeah.
Yeah, so here we go, coming through the line, and all these people, all the bikers are coming through, everybody's coming through, and we're talking to everybody, you know, and he goes, you remember me? And I go, yeah, I do remember you. And he's crying. He goes, nobody's ever treated me like that.
Wow.
And he was crying, and I explained to Linda who he was. And she just smiled, and she goes, yeah, that's who he was. And that kind of encapsulates who Denver was.
Yeah.
Is that one kid. And I'll never forget the look on his face, and I'll never forget that face, because that kid kind of encapsulated who Denver was.
Yeah, and it could have changed his whole life. I mean,
yeah,
to have that experience, or somebody like that recognizes you, who is this guy.
But he was always that way. He had always, you know, he was always the first one to help anybody out, or give him money, or feed him, or do whatever he was always that person. A very, very giving person. And I learned a lot from him by him being that way.
Yeah, giving and wise. I mean, especially growing up in that time, the way that he treated people, the way he looked at it, the way that you can't, you have no control over where you're born, where you come from.
Exactly,
that's
the lesson. That's exactly the lesson, and I learned from that lesson. I've tried to live my life in that vein, that treat people like you want to be treated, and you'll never have a problem in life. And that's worked well for me.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much longer I got left, but I'm looking forward to the day that I see him again. And we had a crowd of about 30 of us that rode together, and I think we're down to about probably 4 or 5 of us left alive of our original group.
Of your original group.
So
you guys still ride together, or?
Well, the 5 of us, now we talk to each other once in a while.
All right.
In fact, the guy that was a painter at that shop, painter at the shop back in those days, he got a hold of me the other day, and I just told you I was building the Denver clone bike. Well, he painted the original Denver clone bike, the pearl orange with purple flames. And I invited him to come up here and paint it when it's ready. Wow. And he says, man, I'm going to cry. I said, you mean that? And I said, yeah, I'm going to fly you up here, and you're going to paint that bike just like you painted his original bike. Wow. And I did the Mondo work on it, and I says, I'm going to do that, and you're going to paint it, and we're going to build Denver's bike.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
And he's all excited. He's all excited that, you know, you got to remember, this has been almost 30 years that Denver's been gone.
Yeah.
And so a lot has transpired over that. I've had the shop longer than he's had it, and a lot has transpired. A lot of people have died and gone away, and there's a few of us that are still around, and a couple of us keep in contact with one another. So this was a big moment for me and a big moment for him, having that conversation with him the other day.
Yeah.
And I remember silver base, and then the candy orange, and then the metallic blue flames, and then it had lavender pinstriping. And if you look at that envelope right there, you'll see that bike on the cover.
On the cover
of the magazine, and it's exactly that.
Wow.
And that's the one I'm building. And so I can't just croak yet. I got a few things to finish up. Got to finish my daughter's gasser and build that Denver bike, finish that Larry bike, and I got a couple more other projects I'd like to do.
So looking over pretty much your whole life then, I mean, had you feel like you've accomplished what you set out to accomplish? And
I think I've accomplished more than I set out. I never set out to do a lot of this stuff. A lot of this stuff fell into my lap, and I just tried to make the best of it and work hard. And people have recognized that, and obviously by the books, the magazines, the TV, the accolades, the awards that I've won. And I think that's just all from working hard and being true. And I think Denver's up there probably had a lot to do with some of this stuff that's going on with me. And I hope he's proud of what I've done and how I've kept his name alive and the history alive of Denver Choppers. And I always remind people, this is where the long bike started. This is where the aftermarket industry started. This is where a lot of things started, and it was all Denver Mullins. And I'm just the guy in the driver's seat right now.
Mm-hmm.
And
did you feel like you just kind of just went with your life then, like kind of just went with the flow? Or I mean, it seems like you didn't grow up, have a plan. It's like it just kind of all seemed to happen.
I always thought I'd be a building contractor all my life, and I did really well at that. I was very successful at it, and I can still build if I want. But then with Denver and him and I building the boats together and building the bikes together, and I think if he was still alive, we'd still be together doing stuff.
Yeah.
I think him and I would always be together building this or building that. Maybe we would have moved on to race cars or doing something else different, but I know that we'd still be doing it together. And being that he's gone and I'm having to do it. And I think a lot about, how would Denver do it? Or how would he handle this situation? Or what would he think of this? Or what would he think of that? And don't take shortcuts because he'd be looking over my shoulder yelling at me if I did something wrong. So it's kind of like that, would he approve of this or would he approve of that? Or would he approve of what I'm saying or what I'm writing or what I'm... how I'm people perceive the shop and the image that we have and the history that we have. Am I a good steward of the past and the history of the shop? Am I doing it justice?
Yeah. Well, I think you are. So I mean, just from
the
little that I know, and I think
thank you for saying that. It's a labor of love and it's a passion and it's something that I enjoy and I think it's a gift that I'm able to do this.
Yeah, and I think just going back to where I started, just like I said, it's like the generosity and kindness you showed me and how helping out the young bikers. And I think that now that I learned about your whole past and history and learning about Denver, it seems like that was a perfect way to honor him and welcome people, make people feel welcome, and I mean, it's very appreciative.
And then then we got to do this interview. So everything happens for a reason, and a lot of times you give a little, but then you'll get it back down the road. So I never worry about that. I never was a big money guy. I'm not doing this for the money, obviously, because I'd have a lot more. But I'm doing it for the passion and the love and the love of being a biker.
Yeah, a
true biker that loves what I do and loyal to my friends, and my friends are loyal to me, and the bond that I have with people, and I want to be a good emissary. I want to be a good keeper of the history.
Yeah.
I want to tell the history because the history needs to be told. To know where you're going, I always say you got to know where you've been.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. Is the legacy and the history. And if you want to know the legacy and history, sit down with me for a few hours. I'll give you a lesson. I'll give you a lesson on the legacy and the history of choppers and the industry and the people in it and the stories behind it and the bumps and bruises and lumps that we took along the way to make it so that these guys that are running around now acting cool, they don't know that when you see an old gray-haired guy with a gray beard, he's the guy that took the lumps and the bumps so that you could go out and ride around right now.
Mm-hmm.
They're the one that blazed the trail. You know, if it wasn't for people like Sonny Barger, you know, and Cisco and some of the other guys that Chuck Zito and some of these other guys that just hardcore that have blazed the trail and given us somebody to look up to and somebody to honor and somebody to respect, you know, and so I guess that goes for anything. I guess if you're a cowboy, you look up to the old cowboys and stuff like that. I guess it's whatever you're at or whatever you're into. If you're racing bicycles or a surfer or whatever, you look to the icons and the history and every walk of life has their heroes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in the music industry, you know, I like Led Zeppelin, you know, and the Rolling Stones and some of the people I grew up listening to. And I was fortunate enough to watch as a young kid.
Nice.
$3.50 got me into the Rolling Stones, you know. And so as a kid growing up and watching those and you know, those are the icons of the music industry. Mm-hmm. We have icons of the motorcycle industry.
Yeah, and they had the blues, the Rolling Stones are influenced by, so it's the same. It's just like you said, every different genre.
And the song "Born to Be Wild," you know, for the movie Easy Rider and stuff like that. You know, it's a lot of things that are intertwined, and you know, the different walks of life and look at all the people now that are out riding Harleys and enjoying motorcycles that you would never think. He's an accountant. What's he doing on a bike? You know, but he's out there clearing his head. Yeah. He's out there riding and enjoying life and you know, sniffing the trees and the freedom that you have. And I encourage anybody, man or woman, if you like the saying goes, you'll never see a bike parked out in front of a psychiatrist's office. You know, and truer story, you know, never told that that's a true statement. So,
well, I think that's a good way to end right there. Yeah,
So I've had a fun time, and thanks for letting me ramble on here a little bit. I hope I enlightened you a little bit about Denver Mullins and Denver Choppers and the history that's here.
Yeah, it's been a fascinating life that you've lived, and I mean, just everything that you've grown up in. Like, you grew up in the epicenter of where it was all happening. And then
I wouldn't change my times. You know, I got to catch the late end of the 50s. I got all through the 60s, the 70s, and all that primetime stuff for these young people that they'll never realize what it is to cruise hot rods up and down Main Street. You know, or ride motorcycles on a big pack on a run up. You know, run up to Lake Arrowhead on choppers, you know, or Big Bear Lake, or you know, and throw a sleeping bag down and camp out and drink and party and bonfires and just the brotherhood and bikes breaking down and fixing them and just the times that we had. You know, it just I wish I could make a movie about it. I wish I had all the old videos. I could make a movie and let everybody see what it was like back then. Yeah. But it's all up in my mind and a little clouded sometimes. But you know, I wouldn't trade it.
Yeah, it sounds like an amazing life, and it's cool that you're in Reno now. And
I'm not done yet. Yeah, my daughter called me one day and said, "Oh man, get your ass up here. You got grandkids." And she goes, "You can do what you do anywhere." About 95% of my work is mail order, built bikes and front ends and frames and whatever I do. So she's right. I can do what I do anywhere. So this is as good a place as any, and I like Reno and lived here before, and so I'm okay with it. You've seen UPS and FedEx coming in and out. Yeah, you know, so that's kind of the way businesses are handled these days. You know, I don't get the foot traffic I had in Vegas. You know, the movie stars coming in and all the icons coming in from all over Vegas, but I get more work done because I don't have all the foot traffic.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you again, Mondo. It was great.
You're more than welcome.
And I'm very happy to have done this, and I wish you all the best going forward. And
let me know when I can hear it, and I would enjoy listening to it.
Great. Yeah, I will. All right. Thank you very much,
All right,
and have a good night, everyone.